My name is Ben Eze and I teach programming. In this Introduction to WPF video series, my goal is to simplify WPF and C# programming concepts and make them easier for you to understand. So let's get right into it. Hello, you're welcome to this channel. In the next couple of minutes, I would walk you through the Windows Presentation Foundation framework. And in doing so, I will consider that you are a beginner, and therefore I will start from the very basics of WPF and progress to medium level, and then get you to the point where you can use WPF and generate very functional applications. And how are we going to do it? If you look at my screen right now, we'll follow this outline. We will first of all go through getting started with WPF, and here we'll be looking at the very basics of WPF. We'll try to define what WPF is. We'll try to go historical, look at the WinForms technology, which most of you may be familiar with, and show you the differences between WPF and WinForms. Then we progress to install the necessary tools required to set up a WPF project and actually execute a WPF project to completion. And we would be using the Visual Studio, the Microsoft Visual Studio. So we would guide you through downloading Visual Studio from the Microsoft website, the Community Edition, which is free, and then setting it up, and then creating our first project within it. So we would look at the one of the major aspects of WPF, which is XAML. WPF has two major aspects. One is XAML, and then the second one is the code behind, which is essentially the C# code that carries out the functions, and XAML is what actually creates all the user interface that is required by the application. So the user interface is separated from the business logic, which is the code behind, and then the user interface is completely done in XAML, while the code behind, everything that handles all the logic, is then done in C# and the code behind. So we'll walk you through the XAML so that you understand exactly what XAML is, the structure of a WPF window in XAML. We'll go through how you add basic controls and control elements, and we'll use examples like buttons, text box, labels, and other control elements to walk you through this example and clarify things for you. Then we'll also look at the layouts in WPF. Layouts are fundamental to the success of any WPF project, because these are the containers, the container controls for the WPF applications. So, and what do I mean by that? So you need to have a container control first, and then that container control will now contain other control elements that you will place inside it. And within WPF, there are basically about four, or it's slightly more than four, grid panel or grid, stack panel, dock panel, canvas. I think there's also wrap panel and a couple of other panels like that, which are actually containers. They are layout containers. So as we will see shortly, for every video, every WPF application, you will have to actually start with one of these layout container controls. So we would walk you through how you can create a responsive user interface using these layouts. Then we talk about data binding in WPF. Data binding is a big subject in WPF and very important subject. And we'll show you the one-directional binding, the two-directional binding, and what is data binding essentially, and then we demonstrate how it works by showing you how data can actually be bound to the user interface elements. And like I said, we'll also set up simple examples of one-way binding and then two-way binding. Then we look at how events are handled. So when you click a button, what goes on behind the scene when you click, or in order to handle the actions that you expect to be handled with that click. So the code behind is what actually does the magic in this sense. So we'll delve into a bit of how the C# code behind looks and explain how it actually interacts with the rest of the program. Then we can look a little bit at styling. Is a bit now slightly advanced, but styling and resources. We'll look at how you can create themes and styles within your application. So where you group certain elements and then make them look alike through styling and themes. And then how you create and apply those styles to controls, and how you use resources for reusable styles. So we'll do all those under styling and resources, but we may not go deep into that because that actually will come under a more advanced video that we'll still do on WPF. This is WPF just for beginners. It's a beginners training program, and we will just enable you to be able to start a WPF application and then complete it and have a working application without getting into so much of complications that can confuse you and discourage you so early. So so we would introduce styling and resources, but we're not going to go so deep into it. And similarly, we will also introduce a little bit of the MVVM, model view model patterns in WPF programming. But we're not going to go deep again because it's one of those advanced subjects that you kind of understand as you practice by building more and more projects within WPF. Then you now get to start understanding the concepts around the model view model and the benefits of that kind of model in programming. If you start from just day one and start talking MVVM, you're likely going to confuse people. So because of that, again, we will just introduce the subject, but we're really not going to dive into it per se in this introductory video training for WPF. So thank you very much for at least listening up to this point. So in a short while, we will move in and start looking at each of these sections in detail, and we'll also be doing hands-on as we progress from section to section. Thank you.